Well, don't forget you got to do the Devo.
Yeah. That TikTok that I saw that showed like if you have 300, and that was like if you put minimum 300 a month for the rest of the 30 years or whatever. In 30 years, if you're 30, by 60 you'll have $1 million.
Yeah.
Obviously, my plan would be to grow it as I go, so like I'll have more than that. But that was like $1 million. I was like, it's like again in my head, if I'm married, maybe have some kids, grown kids, whatever. But I'm like, if I want to live comfortably, I'm thinking at least $100,000 a year, depending on where we're at. So
Both
like,
incomes or just yours?
Just my retirement. If we're just going off of my retirement, $100,000 a year for me and my wife. You know,
yeah,
whatever.
That's only 10 years at $1 million.
That's what I'm saying. That's only 10 years. So I need probably at least $2 million, and then she needs to have something too. You know, like we both need to have that retirement.
That's like, again, like for me, that's why I want to be prepared. Like I don't want to. When I retire, I do not want to be paying for a house unless we're we're on the last leg of it. So like if I retire, I'm just going to pull out enough to pay it off.
Yeah, like, and that would be the goal. Yeah, that would be the goal. But so trust me. But if I had enough to be like, I can comfortably live for the next 25 to 30 years.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely doing stuff like that, going on a around the world cruise or whatever. Yeah. It just all kind of depends. Because my thing is too is like, I would probably just learn how to invest. Because like you can do investing and stuff like that, and Dad doesn't agree with it, but it's like there's programs that you can use. Like one of the streamers I use, he does a program, and he does his. He has like a Discord and all this stuff that he does, and he day trades. That's what he's done for 10 years. He's made millions over the last 10 years day trading.
Yeah.
He's learned how to do it. He teaches a school how to do it. It's like $80 a month, basically, to do the school or whatever. But he lets you in on his live Discord and stream that you can basically trade along with him every day.
Yeah.
The man makes easily every day. He's like, obviously the market changes. Some days aren't bad, but most days that he that he's posting weekly, he's making $1,500, $2,000 a day.
Yeah,
and like yes, there's a lot of learning involved. But if I'm retired and I have all day long for the rest of my life to learn it, I can learn it.
Yeah,
like I can put in a couple months of grinding and learning it to learn it, and then I'm making money on top of my retirement every day. You know, like so then I can continue to make money. Because he literally he'll literally day trade for 1 or 2 hours a day. He'll make his day, and then he's done. He doesn't look at it anymore. Then he goes in the next day, 1 or 2 hours. He's made $1,500 in 15 minutes. He's like, I'm done for the day. I made my money, and like he's like obviously every day's not like that. He's like, you got to play with the market. You got to, but I'm like, if you know what you're doing. Okay, I'm like, I can learn it in a couple months. You know, I can take a couple months and learn it at the worst.
Yeah.
Like, and so like that would be my route. If I didn't have enough to be like, I can't comfortably live, I would just learn that and be like, okay, I can make it up now. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not even talking about that. We've talked about that for like 3 weeks. I feel like
retirement's over.
This is the next episode. I have the Devo.
Yeah.
Devo goes into one of my main questions, so we'll just kind of get into it and then just kind of flow with it.
Go for it.
So, again, yesterday, Sunday, we talked. All of my Devos, I feel like, and this isn't like a cop out. I'm not trying to do this, or I'm not being lazy. It's just we talk about really good stuff, and it hits kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to talk about it as far as the Devo goes. But so we were church. So our community group, obviously in big church, we're still going through Genesis.
Yeah.
Slow rolling through it. And we were talking about we've gotten to where Jacob met Rachel, and God started to fulfill His promise of the many nations through Rachel and Leah.
Yeah.
And their servants that he also slept with. But so we were talking about that in big church. But in the community group, we were talking about the latter half of the southern kingdom of Israel, of Judah. Their 300 something years of reign or whatever. But like there's a main point that was kind of hit on both spectrums of it. It was just about like God's patience and God's like eventual fulfillment. Big takeaway obviously is just because we think it needs to be done right now or we want it to be done right now doesn't mean that's how God's plan is.
Yeah.
Because God was merciful and gracious for hundreds of years in the Southern Kingdom. They were crap. They weren't as crappy as the Northern Kingdom, but they were still crap. You know, they had a few good ones here and there, but they still turned away from him constantly.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? And we talked about specifically when he had made the claim, I believe it was to Isaiah. No, it was Habakkuk. He made the claim through Habakkuk of, in such and such time, I'm going to wipe you out. You're done. Yeah. I'm tired of y'all. I'm going to wipe you out. And he did. You know, it took some time. He gave a little bit more lenient time, but then he ended up wiping them out. And then he gave another one. He's like, okay, after 70, I think it was like 70 years or something like that. He's like, I'm going to bring y'all back to where y'all were. And then obviously if you go in the chronological order of the time, he does bring the Israelites back, and he starts bringing them back into the Promised Land. And then you have the whole slavery in Egypt, and then obviously he brings them out of that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was like the provision of like just the mentality of, one, God is, you can screw up a lot and he's still going to be merciful and patient and stuff like that. It was kind of like double hit when we were talking in the main church service, because he was talking about how Jacob kind of decided to like screw up a lot. You know, one, he didn't love Leah like he should have. And one of the main points that he was hitting was like, God used Leah more than any of them, because out of Leah came Levi and Judah. Those are the two big tribes in the nation of Israel. It's where your priests are from, and then it's where Jesus came from, you know? So he was like, Leah was the unloved one, but God chose to use her in the bigger way.
Yeah.
And obviously, Rachel had her kids. The servants of the two ladies had their own kids, stuff like that. But he was like, there was a lot of corruption within that family. Obviously, Jacob was deceived early on to get Leah, or to get Rachel. He thought he was getting Rachel, but then he got Leah, and then he had to work again to get Rachel. Well, then Rachel and Leah hated each other because one was having kids, the other one was more loved than the other, and all that stuff. And the pastor he was bringing it all. He's like, look, you had these years of just bad behavior, basically, of just like people hating each other, being jealous of each other, manipulating each other. But he's like, all throughout that, God was able to use that to make the 12 tribes. Yeah. Eventually, he's like that. He used the evil. He used the way, you know, Jacob screwed up every which way he could. He's like, but he was able to use all of that to come about his plan of making the Israelites and making the kingdom of Israel. Yeah. And he's like, that's a great message for any of us because we suck as people, basically. But it's like, yes, you can screw up. Yes, you can turn away from God, and yes, there is judgment in those things depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
But he's like, he can still use that. You know, he's like, don't fear, oh, I screwed up too much. Like, because like, yes, again, the main thing is like, what you need to do is, as long as you're turning back and repenting, like that's your goal.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can screw up as much as you want. But he's like, if you're turning back to God and you're giving your life back to God, he's like, don't worry about your past. He's like, because you can still have beautiful things come out of it.
Yeah.
One, that's a great message regardless. Two, it really got me thinking about like more future things. And I was like, man, I'm like, obviously, like I don't want to get back on the subject, but talk about like the retirement stuff. Like, I feel like I've wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of aspects in my life where I feel like I've wasted a lot of time. And it's like, in my head, I will sometimes get to the point of like, oh, well, I did this to myself. And so like, not of this is God punishing me, but it's like, well, this is what I deserve kind of thing. And ultimately, it's not, that's like furthest from the truth. It's like, yes, we deserve ultimately death and stuff for sin.
Yeah.
But I'm not being punished because I sinned or because I did this, because that's not how God operates.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have judgment off of sin, and you can have earthly consequences because of sin, but ultimately God doesn't judge you. Or, like, God doesn't make your life miserable because you've sinned or done something like that. Like, that, I mentally sometimes would get into that funk, especially a couple years back. I don't know why. Because we were never taught that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I was always like, oh, this must be like God punishing me or something like that. I've heard that statement before, and I must have clinged on to it or something.
Yeah.
But so it was just a good reminder of, like, man, I'm like, I didn't screw up my path because of my past.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to worry about, like, oh, I'm falling behind or I'm back in track and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, because you can always look at Paul. Like, I mean, Paul was murdering people on his way, you know, and I mean, we look at him and how he was used in writing most of the New Testament, stuff like that, and, you know, and I mean, look at all the things he talks about. I mean, you got the side of, you know, when he talks about fleeing from sexual immorality to all the way from knowing how to be content when he's laying over in a prison cell chained up to guards, you know, and I mean, so it's like, because, like, I mean, I can think of a lot of the messed up things that I've done, or the choices that I've made that have affected me in different ways, you know, from mentally to physically, whatever, you know, and so it's like, I can think about those, but it's also like, yeah, those, like, I made those choices, I messed up, I did well, whatever it is, but it's like, I mean, God can use a murderer. I mean, God was literally using a guy that was going around murdering his people, you know, and so it's like, I feel like he can use me in a way, you know. If you use David slept with other people's wives, messed up a lot, you know, and yeah, you can look at it and back in the day and be like, oh, well, they had multiple wives, I mean, he was the king, you know, things like, yeah, but still, I mean, God kind of told us not to go that route. I mean, he pretty much was like, you shouldn't do this because it's not how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But yet he had, what was it, him or Saul that had
Solomon
had all the concubines.
He had 1,000 women.
But like David, I mean, ended up with Bathsheba, you know, killing her husband, sending him to the front lines to die. And I mean, like, okay, so well, now you got a murderer. He's a murderer. He set that man up to die. Oh, well, now he's sleeping outside of, you know, the relationship,
He's
sleeping with
her.
Yeah, and then married her. You know, and already had, you know, whatever with her, and it's just like, you know, I'm not trying to, like, be like, well, I'm better than David. You know, like, God used him. I'm not saying that, but it's like, there's always the side that God can use you somehow, some way. I mean, sometimes kind of wish he didn't use me sometimes, because I'm like, dang, I don't want to go talk to that person about that stuff, or like, because I look at it as, and I don't remember who put it to me this way. I think it was my mom, you know, but she's like, you know, God doesn't allow you to just walk through hard parts of life to just keep to yourself. And it's like, that sucks, because I don't want to go talk about that hard stuff. I don't want to talk about the things that were difficult when I was walking through them. You know, like the people that deal with depression, they don't want to go share how they got through depression. What they want to do is just move on from it. They don't want to bring up the memories of it. But like, man, that's like, what a better way to minister to somebody, you know, like, hey, man, I used to do this every day, you know, whatever, smoke weed, have sex with women. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that are illegal or immoral or just sinful. So it's like, but now I do this. Now, because of Christ, I don't have to cling to my addiction with needing to feel desire with women's or multiple women, you know, whatever it may be. Like, there's just all kinds of different options. It's like, to know, like you're talking, you know, like, you've made mistakes, you've made your choices, and it's not like you regret every single choice you ever made, but like,
there's some.
There are some.
Just some.
Trust me, I regret some choices that I made, but also, like, thinking back to it, it's like, man, had I not made that choice, I'd have never gotten that experience. And like, granted, that experience was whatever, you know, whatever, maybe the wrong time or the wrong way to experience whatever it is, but it's like, you know, it's gonna be okay. You know, like, it sucks. I'm gonna fight this, whatever, for the rest of my life, or I'm going to deal with this for the next 6 months, you know. There's all kinds of different options. I mean, like, granted, luckily, again, God never allowed me to have, like, a child or anything, or even, go all the way with having sex. But, like, trust me, I was a regular teenage kid, in high school, figuring out that that girls were hot, girls had things that I wanted, and, sometimes that girl wanted things from me too. And then it's like, oh, well, now I just feel wrong. I feel sick to my stomach. There's one person, and you know her, so I'm not gonna say names, but like,
yeah, don't bait names.
No, I remember it, and it was like, literally, like, anytime I saw that person, I would physically throw up. Like, I was really pushing for something, and it was going the direction that we were going with it. But, like, God was like, you're not gonna do this. No, this is done. And, like, literally, I see the person, I would get physically sick and go throw up. And I 100%, like, in the moment, didn't know what was going on. Thought I was just sick to my stomach because of something. But I, like, never had anything funky. It made me quit drinking Kickstarts for a while, because I would have a Kickstart, and then I'd see that person, and I'd go throw that Kickstart up.
That's gross.
Yeah. And I was like, but, like, I look back and I'm like, 100% that was God using his, whether he was using the Spirit to make me feel sick, or he was himself was down there like, you about to throw up, boy. I don't know what he was doing, but, like, thinking back to it, I'm like, that would have been a really stupid choice to go that route. Really stupid to try and make something, work out of that relationship or whatever. It was just like, that was stupid. And I'm like, I look at it now, I'm like, man, that was funny. Like, that's hilarious. That God, I 100%, like, I'm not trying to be like, God made me feel like crap. No, God straight up made me throw up to not pursue something. Made it physically.
Did that happen multiple times?
Oh yeah, on like for like months. And I was like, only on a certain day out of the week when I would see the person, and then if I saw them ever outside, I would get sick. I was like, this is freaking hilarious. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, God was really telling me not to pursue something, and I really
maybe it was just he knew you had no self-control, so he's like, I'm going to make it to where you can't do anything. Kind of undesirable.
Yeah, physically we could not, like I would see the person, and I'd have to go throw up, and I'd come back, I'd be okay, and then I was like, man, anytime I was around that person, I just needed to throw up. But yes,
kind of a side tangent. Earlier we were talking about it goes into the question. Earlier we were talking about just future crap. So I have this new trick. I say it's a new trick. It should be a pretty like you're gonna think this is gonna sound
like you should have been doing that for years.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. But you should. As a Christian, you think like, no, duh, idiot. Like that's kind of the point. But so like, say I because I have anxieties all the time apparently. So I'm stressing about like future something or anything. I don't know. It could be relationships. It could be money. It could be whatever. I've started to do this, just a trick of like, I will mentally try to visualize what heaven is going to be like. Because ultimately, and again, it's like, as a Christian, you're like, well, no, duh, like we should be looking towards the future of heaven and stuff like that. But it's like when you actually stop and think of like, oh, one day I'm not going to wake up and have like back pains, or I'm not going to have to worry about money, or I'm not going to have to worry about relationships like the bad parts of relationships, at least. And like, I actually think of like, oh man, like I will eternally be happy. I will eternally feel like no pain, and have joy and stuff like that. Like I have started to do that mentally when I would like get anxious about something or like think about the future or whatever, and be like, oh, this is just a blink of an eye kind of thing. And it essentially cures my anxiety in the moment. Like, and it's like, again, it's like, as Christians, like, yeah, we should be doing that. Like that should be, but I think a lot of times we say, oh yeah, we should do this, but we don't actually do it.
Yeah.
And I have actually been stopping and mentally trying to picture to the best of my abilities, like how I'm gonna feel or what it's gonna be like or just like that, whatever. And it's been like really, really helping me. So it's made me think about heaven a lot. And my question is, obviously we're gonna get a new earth. We obviously it's like after Revelation stuff happens, we're gonna get a new heaven, new earth. Do you think that it's gonna be the same earth as it is now?
No.
Obviously, we're gonna have more land, because it talks about there's not gonna be oceans dividing.
I think.
But do you think
earth
like
it's gonna get destroyed?
So do you think it's gonna be like apocalypse kind of thing, and then rebirth kind of?
He talks about raining fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
He's not flooding this place. He's not just gonna like shovel some dirt,
But do you think we're gonna have the same? How do I put it? Do you think that we're gonna have the same? Not as far as like the same advances. I mean, maybe advances.
No,
I don't know.
Here's the thing. I think that this place is going to get destroyed for one reason, and that's sin. I don't think because you think about it, sin cannot be in the presence of God.
Yeah.
Right. So if God were to show up, this place is going to get destroyed. That's just how it would go. I feel like. I'm
not saying like, do you think New York City's still going to be here?
No,
I think like, do you think like it's
we're all going to be shepherds?
No. do you think we're going to have the same food and plants? And do you think we're going to have the same landscape? Like there's going to be mountains?
I do think about those things, and because you think about it, like the streets of gold, and then
that's heaven.
Yeah, your houses, and specifically talking the new earth. When I come to think of that, do
you think it's just gonna be all clouds, cloudy? Because I feel like when I think of heaven, I think of just clouds. I think we're gonna be floating on clouds or something. Yeah. And that's such the cartoon version of heaven. But I'm I don't know what heaven is gonna look like. I don't, and obviously we're not supposed to. But it's the same concept as the earth. It's I know the earth now is there's grass, there's trees. Obviously God made all those things at the beginning, so I don't see why he wouldn't remake those things. I feel
because again, I'm gonna go back to Genesis with this one. It's because when God did make those things, he said they were good.
Yeah.
Human beings are the ones who tainted what God made good. Oh yeah, so screwed it up. And I'm talking specifically don't even get into the side of actual sin. We just screwed it up based off of we found fossil fuels and we're let's burn this stuff. Yeah. And so ozone's trashed. Everybody complains about the ice caps melting. I could care less about those things, to be honest. That's my kids' problems, not mine. And I'll tell you what, it shouldn't be my kid's problem either. Let that be God's problem. Let him destroy it. Who cares? Let the people that made the place take care of the place. But I think they'll be I think it'll be this is gonna sound weird, but the Hobbits.
Okay.
That's kind of what I envision when I the rolling hills and just it's gonna be peaceful, beautiful.
I could be down with that.
And I could.
Do you think we'll have electricity? Do you think we'll have modern advances?
I think we're gonna have whatever we need. Honestly, if I'm man,
what we need and what we want are very different.
Yeah.
But because I think of it this because I've heard it explained like this, and I've obviously we're talking about there's going to be no sin, there's not going to be no evil, but there's going to be good.
Yeah.
Whatever is good is going to be there. There's a lot of advances nowadays that are good that are good. Yeah. Now, obviously, media.
A massage chair is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff that that is good. That's as long as you get rid of the negative, evil aspects of it. Yeah. There's a lot of that are good. You know,
that's a good question because I'm always man, will there be cars in heaven?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just be God, today I'd really like to drive a Porsche.
Will I be able to golf? That's the thing, because it's that's what I meant. Was do you think it'll be as far as what we experience, the good things we experience today, will we actually have that in heaven? Or will it be just a reset, as in we're back to just nature and all. Not that it's not good.
I kind of lean to the side that it's going to be back to regular basics.
Because you also got to understand, it's not just our generation of Christians. It's every generation. So it's I feel like obviously those who are in heaven probably see. I don't know how the dimensional thing works. I would assume people in heaven can see what's happening on earth. Maybe. I don't know. Not all at once. They're not obviously God. They're not omnipresent. So, but like, cause like you know the saying of like, oh, such and such just looking down on you.
Yeah,
I feel like to some extent that could be true. Like they could peek into what's happening.
But see, like, and here's my thing, because in heaven, I mean,
so do you think Moses is just looking at a TV like, what the heck is that? like that's what I'm getting at. It's like Abraham's gonna be so confused if there's cars, you know, like
you want to ride in my camel?
Like that's what I'm confused. It's like I wonder where it'd be at.
I feel like it's gonna be like just a big open area that we all live in. Honestly, like it's gonna be more like I don't think we're like I kind of like I know.
So do you think it's figurative when he's talking about? Because I think it's literal when he talks about mansions.
I think that's literal.
Yeah.
But I mean that also specifically
that
talks about heaven.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong.
Well.
I don't know if my house in heaven is coming down to the new earth.
Yeah, so it depends. So it really depends on like...
if I'm not a good enough Christian.
It depends. Are you scraping by? No, so... Yes, technically... It's hard because it says he's going to prepare a place for us.
Yeah.
That place technically hasn't happened yet for us. This kind of gets back into that whole dimensional thing of time because he's outside of time. He could be in the future preparing the new earth as we speak. Yeah. Technically, because he is outside of time. We just don't see it yet. So I think that would be the most plausible explanation.
Like, I think... When I think of
because I don't think it'll be heaven as far as like heaven and the new earth will be separate.
Yeah, because here's my thing: it's like heaven is where we're going to be worshiping Jesus 24/7 or worshiping God. Like that's what we're going to do. Like I die here in heaven. I'm greeted at the pearly gates by whoever. I don't care if it's Job or Jesus. I'm good. But like I think once I enter in heaven, like my priority then is going to be worshiping my Creator. Worshiping him. I think that's now when it comes time for the new earth, I will still clearly be worshiping him because he's God and he has made a new earth, a new place for me. And like that is where like I'm kind of wondering like that. I feel like that's where my house is and it's not in heaven. But like I kind of think that when the new earth comes, like that's when heaven and the earth are like
same dimension at least.
Same dimension. Yeah.
Like, hey, let's go take the bridge to heaven.
Yeah, like, let's just get on the escalator and ride on up to heaven and go meet Jesus and talk with him. Like, but you know what? It could be that way. Straight up. It could be that way. I don't really know. If I'm being honest, I don't think about it a lot.
Well, I do now. Like again, I have more because I'm using that trick of
to
think about it. Basically, I started using that model, that trick to not push away, but like
work through.
Diffuse. To just diffuse the anxiety I have of like, oh, if I'm, like the whole I don't want to work till I'm 70 kind of thing. Okay, but it's like, what if I do work till I'm 70? Okay, I'm gonna have eternity of not having to work. I'm gonna have eternity of not having to have pains of working or worry about money or any of this stuff. So it's like that. It helps me work through that anxiety of whatever I'm having at the moment, kind of thing. So I do. So that's why I've been thinking about having a lot more.
Yeah, and like when I think of it personally, like I don't, because I don't feel like I'm an anxious person really. I
don't think you are.
I get in my head sometimes about stuff and stress, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, what's coming next? Like I'm not normally that way. I'm normally like whatever, like we'll deal with it when that comes. Like, I feel like I'm pretty go with the flow kind of things.
I am to an extent.
Yeah, I feel like because like honestly, like when I try to wrap my mind around like when I die, what happens? Like I just get overwhelmed, and I'm like, you know what, like because like. And I do try to think of the great things of heaven. Like, I know there's going to be beautiful. I know there's going to be people there that I know and love. And I think because God is gracious and merciful, like, I'll get to see, my friends or family that I've lost along the way, like, that are Christians. Not everyone, because if there might have been some family members I didn't know that really didn't have a relationship with Christ. And
what's the craziest part?
What?
Is you won't care.
Yeah.
Which is so hard to comprehend. Because I thought it was along the lines of like I can't comprehend not worrying about. So this is going to be so far in advance. This is going to be kind of left field, kind of not. Obviously, I don't know if it's scriptural or not. I don't know. But there's not marriages in heaven.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
that's like soulmates.
Yeah, there's not
nothing talked about really.
Yeah, so like you and Emily's marriage isn't going to really be a thing in heaven.
I don't think we'll worry about it.
Exactly.
I think
that's the point. Is it's so hard to comprehend
right.
that you won't worry about your wife in heaven, but it's like you won't.
My wife, and I'm not trying to say that she's only used for one reason. You know, she's not just there for reproduction. Mm. But that is a part
I was going to say that.
That is a part of why God gave me her, is to reproduce. Mm. The other part is that we walk together in our pursuit of Christ. Mm. Now, like, yes, when that time comes and one of us leaves each other to go to heaven, not to get divorced or nothing, that's not on the cards. I mean, there would be reasons for divorce, but we don't plan to go that route, just to make it clear. But, like, yeah, like, I think about that, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go up to Emily and be like, well, when I die, it ain't going to matter. I ain't going to worry about you. Like, no, that's just a crap sack thing to say. But, like, I've thought about that because I'm married now, and I'm like, I'm not going to have Emily in heaven. I might see her in heaven. I will see her in heaven. I know that she's a Christian. I know that she will be there. But yeah, like thinking about it, like my priority is not going to be her. Yeah. My priority isn't going to be what are my kids doing on earth. My priority is not going to be, oh, what are they getting at work tomorrow? Yeah,
it's so hard. That is hard for me to conceptualize right now.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'll be honest with you, like I'm single. I want to be married. I want to have a great wife and a loving relationship with her. Because I used to be like this too. I used to always be like, "Oh God, don't come back before I get married." You know when
right.
you're like younger, you're like, let me experience these things before you come back.
I understand that.
Now I'm trying to wrap my head more around the fact that I won't care, not in a bad way, but just I won't care because it's not
what your priority.
It's not what matters. And it's like so I am coming around to the fact of like, oh, it doesn't matter in the end, but it's like I still want to experience those things, obviously. Yeah. But it's like it's so hard to understand of like, oh, I won't care about not being with my wife in there, you know? Like yes, you will see her and stuff like that, but it's like we won't be together and that's not going to bother me.
Yeah, I think, and I don't. I honestly feel like that thought won't even cross our mind because if we're being honest, in marriages, I mean, there can be sinful things. Mm. And again, sinful things don't exist. Now, like, granted, I mean, when...
But do you think you won't remember or realize That's another good thought. Do you think you'll remember the good things about your life?
You know, honestly, I don't really care. You know, I don't care if I'm going to remember those things. I think that again my mind is going to be so overwhelmed with where I'm at and whose presence I'm in that thought won't occur to me.
I also think our best day is like I think scripture talks about is like our best deeds are like dirty rags. Yeah, it's like our best day, our best memories are going to be like
the day
nothing compared to what it'll be.
It's like again, that's hard to think about because I'm like on the days that I'm like I am nailing being a Christian.
Okay,
like that's trash.
Yeah,
you ain't like, even scratching.
Suck. Yeah,
and I'm like again, you know,
dude. Our pastor said a phrase the other day, and it was such. I was like, that sucks, but it's so cool. It's this. He was referencing another pastor, and he said they were talking about backsliding. And he said, he's like, basically, he's like, if you've, have you ever felt more in love with God than you do right now? Well, then you've backslid. Yeah. Then you're backsliding. Because at one point you were more in love with God than you are right now. And I'm like, dude, you can never win. It's like, that's such a good thing, but, because obviously it's like, you strive for that, but it's calming to understand that I will never get to that point. Yes, I strive for it, but I don't have to try and I don't have to think, oh, I suck if I'm not perfect because you will never be there. But it's like, it's like if you've ever been more, I think of camp all the time because it's like the moments we always talk about the camp high, like having a camp high. Yeah. the more and more I grow up, the more I realize those weren't like artificial camp highs. No, we were put in the perfect scenarios to fully chase God in those moments, or try to fully chase God in those moments.
We removed all outside things. The only things that we could have let in were the things that were still there.
Yeah,
you know, like trying to impress that girl or whatever.
Yeah,
but like, I mean, we didn't have phones, we didn't have technology.
Yeah, we were surrounded by worship daily, surrounded by reading our Bible daily, surrounded by serving others daily. So it's like we put ourselves in what we should be doing continuously. To feel the love of God. So it's like, I feel like, because I remember a lot of the times feeling like, man, I've never felt closer to God. And it's like, oh yeah, I've clearly backslid. Because I'm like, I felt closer back then than I do now. And like that statement, I was like, ugh. I was like, that's such a hard thing to hear. But it's also like, yeah, it's just how it is. It's like, because it's like I feel like everyone can always point back to a point of like where they felt more in love with God or more in tune with God than they do currently or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, you're backsliding at the point. Right. It's like, that sucks, but it's like, okay.
And like, you know, back to the sides of like that and thinking of heaven, like, you know, like we had a guy come in today and it made me sad. Like, I was honestly kind of upset with him. Because dude, cuss word every 2 seconds. And then he'd be like, I swear to the GD Lord above that I'm a born again, saved by, you know, God's grace Christian. And I'll tell you right bleeping now that I talked with God and Jesus and he said, that's okay, brother. And I'm like, literally, like, it just like, I almost was like tempted to just be like, Brandon, can we just tell him to go? Like, and I'm like, and it's just like, I hadn't been that irked by somebody. And like, because I'm like, you are the worst example of a Christian I can think of right now. Like, I honestly don't want you to say this. Like, and I like almost like feeling like I need to say this to this guy. Like, because I was getting like, I'm not like, I've honestly been, you know, a couple months ago, I was better off with reading my Bible and talking to God and doing that. Now, like, I'm finally kind of getting back into it, picking up again. But I'm like, man, like, you are setting the crappiest example I can think of right now as a Christian, if this is what you're claiming. Like, you have said 30, at least, he probably said, within being in there in 10 minutes, he said at least 100 plus cuss words. Kid you not. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm like, you can't say, like, that you talked with Jesus and he said that you're, you know, because he's talking about like, I talked with Jesus and he said my cousin's okay. And I'm like, then why does he tell us don't let filth and slander come out of your mouth?
Yeah, that one's always a hard one.
But I'm like, it irked me so bad, and I was just like, I just want to tell you right now that you're wrong.
Yeah, I don't. In those moments, I do my best to try and just focus on my own inward self and be like, okay, because it's two-pronged. Because first of all, I don't want to attempt to be like, oh, thank God I'm not like this guy,
right?
Because it's like, obviously that's
because I remember when I used to cuss like him.
That's I'm putting myself on a higher pedestal kind of thing. You don't want to do that. But it is also, it's like, you know, like the only way I can get past, because I had to deal with people like that a lot at Steelmaster when I was managing. Now, granted, a lot of the guys were great guys, nice friendly guys, but you'd have the cranky heads come in every now and then, old guys set in their ways, and they don't like how you're doing it, and you're doing it wrong, and all that, and so the language is flying everywhere. They're yelling at you because and I'm like, no, I can't control any of this. I'm just managing the place. Like, I don't set prices or anything like that.
Right.
But I would just mentally be like, okay, well, like, I'm straight. He can do his own thing, you know? Because I tend to think of, like, I can't remember who said it or what it was. I can't remember what it was, where it was from, but it was like, why do we expect non-believers to act anything but non-believers?
Yeah.
So it's like, a sinner's gonna sin.
Yeah, and like,
why do you expect anything different?
And here's the thing: is the guys that come in and it's just filth out of their mouth, and they never say a thing about church or the thing about being a born again Christian. Because like, you're talking about things that are true, being a born again Christian.
Yeah,
and like,
and it was more of like a triggering kind of thing. For
that one, it was just like, I really wish you would stop saying that.
Yeah,
because you are not a good example of a Christian. Like, and don't get me wrong, like my language is not 100% perfect. I mean, and like, granted, I have toned way back because I remember like in high school, like that was just the thing. Like you just cussed because you could. That made you cool. And I mean, it really didn't. It just kind of sounded stupid. Like I'm just using words because they're just words. And like, and another thing is like realizing that some words are just words, right? Yeah. Like if somebody
that's the hard part about cussing in today's age, because because like going over to Latvia, total cultural, you saw it because the teenagers who were helping us, even some of the kids, were cussing. That's just normal language for them. They don't think about it, they don't worry about it, and we're like, oh my god, did he just say that? Did they just say that? And it's like they don't think twice. And so it comes into that, because I remember having conversations with some of those kids. It was like, they were like, why do y'all emphasize so much about like these cuss words? It's like, that's just normal for us. It's like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. And it's like, it's a cultural thing.
And like, I don't want to say one like wanker. Like that over here doesn't mean crap.
Yeah, over there.
That is the cuss word in the UK.
And so
like, things like that, like,
you do wrestle with culturally, it can be very different. Yeah. Texturally, it can be, because like if I'm cussing you out, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I can say you're a crap sack and mean the same thing.
Yeah.
But not cussing, So obviously the intent and stuff is behind it.
Yeah.
Those situations are hard because it's like he's claiming to be a believer and all this stuff, and it's like, cool. I don't care if Christians cuss. I really don't. Like, I've kind of gotten past that point of like, because I used to be like hard on like, you cussing, you're not a good Christian at all. And it's like, no, it's like some people just grow up different.
I don't put it on that level. I don't put it.
Oh,
on the
I
level.
used to.
Yeah, I remember, because like I don't put it on the level of, if you cuss, you're just a crappy Christian.
Yeah.
I think there's a side that, like for me, like God has revealed over time, hey, you're my ambassador. You are the person who's carrying my name. And so like, whenever I read where, I believe it's Paul who talks about not letting filth and slander come from your mouth, stuff like that, like, so trash, like I don't need to get my point across or to say something. I don't have to drop an F-bomb, or I don't have to drop, all the what we claim over here in America as cuss words. I don't have to drop those to make a point. Now, like, again, like you have this side of things like back in the day, like the Bible mentions the word ass. Well, ass was a donkey. It still is a donkey.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I think there's that God talks to people differently, and I don't personally believe that God would have told this guy, you know what, you can just go off and say whatever words you want. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, anytime someone ever says, well, God told me it was okay. No, he didn't. It's like, if you, best thing, if you had to ask God, is this okay? Probably not. Like, let's be honest here, because the Bible is very clear about pretty much everything. Very little is left to the imagination and interpretation of like scripture, like, oh, it could be one or the other.
Yeah.
So if you had to ask God, like, is this okay? That might answer your question right there. Yeah. Like, it might not be.
And like, and again, like I again, culturally looking at it, if I'm okay, because the Bible is solid in what it says, but we have to adapt it to where we live.
Yeah.
So if I'm living in the UK and I'm a Christian over there, and certain words are cuss words, but certain words like like the F-bomb, or the B word over there, I think that was actually still the same. But like, over there, if I use those words on a daily basis and it's not a bad word, then I'm just using a word. Now, if I brought that over to America and then I realize, oh, if I'm saying the F-bomb, that's a bad word over here. And if I'm a Christian, I think God will reveal that to me and be like, hey, there's a cultural change. So, like, again, like, I'm not going to go over to the British and call everybody wankers. Yeah. I know that's a bad word. That's cussing for them.
Yeah.
Over here, if I call you that, it's because I'm joking with you, and I'm calling you something. Granted, again, probably still shouldn't use that language.
Yeah.
But again, it's because God has revealed and told us in Scripture, like, hey, like, if you're my ambassador, you're my disciple, this is what you are, you got to set the example. You need to start setting the bar. You're going to fail. I know that.
Yeah.
And God kind of hints at it, like you're not good enough. I mean, he tells us that we're worms, and well, worms eat dirt and crap. So like, we ain't very high. Clearly, we ain't all high and mighty. That's for sure. But like, it's just one of those things. It's like, man, it just that happened, and it's just like
in those moments, you just got to focus on yourself.
I'm just like, I just want to be like, hey man, why don't you go read this scripture?
Like. Yeah, like, you just gotta focus on it, be like, and not in like a boastful way, be like, oh, I'm doing so much better than he is, but it's like, just be like, thank God I'm where I'm at, kind of thing. Like, thank God I'm different than I used to be, kind of stuff like that. Because if you don't, you're just gonna get pissed off.
Yeah, and there's the side of, again, like, clearly he's missed something, so more it should be, oh my gosh, I need to pray for this guy.
And so many people too. Especially here in the South, in the Bible Belt, everyone's a Christian. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I pray to God all the time. I talk to God all day and all that. It's like, it's almost a cultural like way of life that we've created.
Yeah.
Because that's just how it is in the South. Like, you're a good old boy and you're a Christian and you grow up a Christian because your parents are Christians and all that stuff. Like, that's just how it is. So it's like, he might not have been even thinking like, oh, I'm a believer, but I know it's okay to do this because of this. He might not have ever read the Bible. He might not have ever cracked it open. He might just be like, oh, God. He might be thinking, oh, I don't feel bad about cussing, so that's God telling me it's okay kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's such a way of life for so many people nowadays that like that they're not obviously in a relationship with God. They're just taking the religious aspects of it, like, oh yeah, well, I grew up in it, so
and they want to. I mean, who wouldn't want to think about the good sides of it? Like, oh yeah, I'm going to heaven because I'm a Christian, but realizing, and I think they're hopefully again God would lay it on my heart to pray for him, and well, granted, probably has, and maybe I'm missing it because I'm like, I just want to look at him and be like, dude, you need to go read your Bible.
Well, I mean, if it's upset you this much, yeah, probably.
I honestly was just like, I didn't want to just sit there and yell at him and Bible thump him, but I just want to be like, man, I don't think that's what God said to you. Like, I don't think God just is letting you just go off and, I mean, great, dude, be on fire for the Lord and talk about being a born again Christian. Please do. I mean, like, people need it, but don't drop the F-bomb and GD in there at the same time. And I was just like Brandon, like me and Brandon just looked at each other after he left, and it's just like, man, like, sadly, he is more boastful about Christ than I am.
Yeah. Yeah, you could look at it like that.
But I hate that that's the example he set, but, and I'm not saying, when you're talking about language, there's so much difference, so much change over the years, and it's just like, cussing has almost become a natural thing now. Back in, like,
it's not taboo like it was.
Yeah, it used to be like
10, 15,
we don't
20
say those
years
words.
ago.
Now everybody uses the words. So, but yeah, well, you ready to call it there? Because I'm good.
Yeah, well, I'll save my other question. I think I had another question.
Yeah, you can say that for next week.
Yeah, we'll save it for 2 weeks. I don't know.